we're all lucky to be part of the blue continent. And the blue continent, as you know, is the Pacific, and we are all tied together as islands and as people by the Pacific Ocean and the energy in it. So really, the people of the Pacific are one people, and it's supposed to be the biggest continent in the world. And the places I work with specifically are the Commonwealth of the Northern Marianas, Guam, Republic of Palau, the Federated States of Micronesia, that's that oval in the lateral oval, which is made up of Chuk, Yap, Krashai. And then in the south, there's American Samoa, and the target is where the Republic of the Marshall Islands is. And you probably remember that best because that's where the US did most of its nuclear testing. And of course, Hawaii to the north. And specifically, what I will be talking about is the Cancer Council of the Pacific Islands. And the Cancer Council of the Pacific Islands is a council that was put together to address cancer prevention and control in the US Pacific, which is all these areas. So it's the indigenous people that came together and said, we are going to address cancer prevention and control in the Pacific. And this is what this is about. Now, every organization has a story or a legend behind it. And so I'd like to share with you in the tradition of the Pacific, because in the Pacific, as you know, we trade oral histories and so forth. So I'm going to give you the legend of the Cancer Council of the Pacific Islands. It all started around 1984. And in 1984, I was working in the Marshall Islands, and it was in a place called Amur Ishoda Hospital. And this hospital was built right after World War II, but it was really a hospital, as you can imagine, many Pacific hospitals that don't have much. It was run down, equipment gone, or didn't work. There were very few medicines, and the patients, the hospital wards were full. There was one ward for the women, there was one ward for the men, there were bed after bed after bed, and there was a bathroom at the end. So after I finished my residency at UCLA, I was working in Amur Ishoda Hospital, and I was working late at night, and I saw someone sitting at the nursing station, and usually no one sits there, and there's usually very few staff. And so I thought, you know, I would go up to the person and just meet them and say hello. So I was just about to say hello to this person, and he turned to me and he said, "Pacifican, do you remember me?" And I looked at him, and he looked vaguely familiar, but not really. And I said, you know, I'm really sorry, but I don't remember you. But what I really remember was that he called me Pacifican. And Pacifican was a word that was coined just about that time by a guy named Sitaleki Finau from Tonga. So he wouldn't have known this word. So I thought, oh, interesting. And so I said, oh, you know, are you a doctor? Are you visiting patients? And he said to me, he looked at me and he said, I'm not a doctor, and I am visiting patients. And when he said that, he looked towards the men's ward, and he looked at the first two beds, and there were two patients there that were dying of cancer. And so I thought to myself, oh. So I said to him, you know, Etam, meaning what's your name? And he said, didn't answer quite directly. He said, you know, I look over the rhythm of the Pacific, and it's not doing well. And so I was thinking, this guy's trying to confuse me. So I asked him again, Etam, what's your name? And he looked at me again and he goes, my name, Ita Baru, means my name is Baru. And so, knowing a little bit of Marshallese at the time, I thought, oh, Baru. You would call him Labaru, and Baru is the name, Marshallese word for crab. So I told him, your name means crab in Marshallese. And he looked at me and said, crab in English, it's pa'a in Samoan, and in Latin, it's canker or cancer. And so I became very scared, and I kind of, you know, thought about things, and I said, you know, why are you here? And he said, Pacifican, it's because you invited me here. And I said, I didn't invite you here. And he said, you invited me here and you nourished me. That's why I'm here, Pacifican. And so after that encounter, we got into a further dialogue. I said, you know, how exactly do I nourish you and, you know, help you out with, you know, and invite you here? And he said, Pacifican, what you do as a Pacifican is you put things in your mouth that are very hurtful. You put things into your environment that are very hurtful. And these kind of things are dark nourishment for me. It allows me to grow. It allows me to get bigger and stronger. You are the ones who do this to me. I don't want to be like this. When this started, and you just started making me grow big like this, I started as a normal part of everybody. And now, look what I have to do. I have to hurt, I have to kill, and I have to maim. Now do you remember me? And I said, I believe I do know who you are, and I have met you several times. And I thought back and I said, where have I met him before? And I met him before when I was in medical school. I was doing a rotation in Fresno, California. And at that time, there was a Mexican gentleman there, and he was writhing in pain. The cancer had gone into his back. And in those days, there really wasn't good medicine. 24/7, writhing in pain. And so I remember meeting him there. Then when I was at UCLA, I remember again I met him there. It was with a 13-year-old girl that I worked with for 18 months with his mother. She ended up dying from leukemia. And then I remember meeting him again, but it was in the Pacific, because we were seeing more and more cancer cases, and all the doctors from the Pacific had come together and said, you know what? We are seeing more and more cancer that is coming about. And Baru said, now do you know who I am and that you met me? And I said, we did not call you here. Can you please leave? Please leave and leave now. And he said, I cannot leave. You have invited me here. I am here because of you. I remain here because of you. I'm nourished because of you. Do you not know that? I am the sentinel and the harbinger of excess. And that's who I am. And until you understand that, you will not know what to do and how to manage what you are looking at. You have been lulled into complacency. You have been lulled into safety, and in that complacency, that current moves throughout the blue continent. And that's what you have now, and that's why I can move freely, and you make no mistake. You have invited me, you have invited me, you make me grow, and you nourish me. So I looked further and I said, you came from the West, you were sent from the West. You are evil and you are death. He said, make no mistake. I was not sent from anywhere. Remember, Pacifican, you invited me. I am not death. I am not evil. I am made from the same maker as you. I want peace. You're not allowing me to have peace, Pacifican. And he looked at me again. He said, you know, don't you realize that you as Pacificans, you have the assets now, right now, to put together and understand who I am. And if you do understand that, then you can go forward. So in that kana rim, it means I woke up and I thought I didn't even know I was asleep. I was at the nurse's station still. And I thought, I'm dreaming. Lana Drim Rim means a dream that goes forward. And so I thought to myself, we are going to bring Pacificans all parts of the ocean to form an indigenous body that will work with cancer prevention and control, because what I have learned from this dream, and these people will be indigenous people that will be appointed by the directors of health, and they will share their collective wisdom, they'll share their common knowledge, and do it in a way that is friendly and usable by the Pacific. It is not Western medicine. It is a blend of what you know and how to apply it. So many of you can see these were the first people in this Cancer Council of the Pacific Islands. And in this council, you can see two of your heroes. There's Margaret Sisipara, and there's Dr. Victor Tofianos in there somewhere in the back. And these are all people, indigenous people from the Pacific. The gentleman in the middle, he is a Black American from Harlem who understood what poverty is about, and he gave $250,000 to get this in motion. And with that, this group actually developed further and further. And they came together, so each of the pieces in that circle you see in the middle, they all developed a comprehensive cancer coalition. It's indigenous people from their areas, survivors and doctors, legislators, and each one of these, they come together as a group. Each group develops their own cancer plan. So each of these countries now has that. And as a group, they come together and they meet with the Cancer Council of the Pacific Islands to make a regional cancer plan. And it's also touched the international arena where the University of Hawaii Cancer Center, the medical school, Center for Disease Control, and this body that started as a CCPI that you saw has leveraged $30 million to put this together, to make the dream come forward. And so this is what this looks like today. It's the power of the collective, of the communal, and people from all over the Pacific talking together about cancer prevention and control. We started off with zero money, $30 million later, from writing grants. You heard about that earlier. But it's a force to contend with, but it's the assets of the Pacific. It's the assets of the Pacific. This is not the assets of the West. This is not the technology of the West. This is the brains and the power of the indigenous people and the Pacificans. Labaru came back again. He looked not so rested, but he wasn't as angry and as tired. He looked like kind of there was some progress being made. And every time I met him, unfortunately, somebody passed from cancer. And he said something very strange at the end. He said, "You know, Pacifican, you've met my sister." And I thought, oh man. And I said, "I don't know your sister." And he said, "You do know my sister." And I said, "What's your sister's name?" And he said, "My sister's name is Tangal." And I said, "Tangal?" And Tangal in Marshallese means sweet. It's the word they use for diabetes. And so, in the end, we have a lot of things that Labaru has talked about, that he has set in motion a way to think about these illnesses in a way of why you have to put together your own assets to take care of it. And so the final word is a word that I've learned from the Yapese. It's a word, kamagar. And what that means, it's the literal translation, it means you look tired. But the context of tired is that in the Pacific, people journeyed very far to be with each other. So when someone came to be with you, you'd say, "Kamagar, you look tired." You're saluting their presence because they have traveled so far and they're so tired to be with you. Kamagar for this journey. Thank you.